Welcome everyone. Bill Dwight, me, Mary Monahan, we're back and we have another conversation. As noted in our initial broadcast, we're talking all things about DPW and veering off the subject to other interesting things that are informative and get Bill and I excited about local government.
Watch
and that's
us
a
get
lot.
excited. Yeah, watch us get excited. Mary, I recently read yesterday or the day before that you actually, in your capacity as a Board of Public Works member and chair, made a presentation to the council about a rate increase. And you want to break that down for me, because actually that's done differently than it is in my experience in Northampton. So
Sure. So in Holyoke, the way the city ordinances are established right now, the Board of Public Works is the recommending authority to the city council for the sewer rates. The sewer rate pays for, the way it's established right now, the services associated with the city's long-term service agreement for the collection and treatment of wastewater at our wastewater treatment plant. In addition to that, the service agreement also includes provisions for doing the city's stormwater management plan. It's a very prescriptive permit from EPA. It includes system maintenance, it includes system inspections, it includes improvements, and it even includes public education and outreach. The most visible sign of that stormwater management plan is the citywide street sweeping. That is paid for by the sewer rate payer. The other component of the long-term service agreement is the operation and maintenance of the city's flood control system. Those are pump houses and some basic barriers that also get established during high water events that, date back to the 30s and earlier.
Army Corps of Engineers structures, right?
Definitely.
Yeah.
So when this Board of Public Works began the process of identifying what is the sewer rate necessary to maintain the enterprise fund, which pays for all of that, including some personnel services associated with the clerical billing, the long-term debt associated with the combined sewer overflows.
First of all, an enterprise fund is a dedicated fund system that goes exclusively to these systems, as opposed to a general fund, which provides for paying for staffing, paying for even going as far as the schools. The enterprise fund, the fees that go in that you pay go directly into this enterprise fund and can only be applied towards that system.
That's correct. And at a general statement might be that it's a fair way of assessing costs, because in Holyoke, the cost associated with your sewer bill is based on the amount of water you use. We get that information through the water department, with the assumption that water that came in, that water is going out through the sewer system.
Makes a fair amount of sense.
Yeah,
yes.
So we do have some sections of the city that are still in Title V systems, so they don't get a sewer bill. Title V are your septic systems.
Right.
And so they don't have access to our wastewater collection and treatment system, so they're not sent a sewer bill. With that being said, let me back up first. Let me looking at what today the enterprise fund intends to pay for historically, moving it all forward, based on usage, based on the budget for FY24, which has been which reflects the need for emergency repairs to sewer breaks and a slight increase in the debt services. The sewer rate being proposed is $8.03 in order to have a balanced budget for FY24. That $8.03 from the current $7.50 for the average ratepayer will be about a $30 annual increase in the sewer bill.
So it's paid quarterly? Then.
It's paid quarterly.
Okay.
And in looking at other communities, and I believe Northampton, I know several other communities have recently had $100 and more annual increases in their sewer bill. So our increase is significantly lower than what's happened in surrounding communities. And the impact, the average user, again, this initial detailed look at the enterprise fund revisited what that average user looks like. In the past, the average user was kind of based on the number of sewer bills. But our sewer billing system, water billing system, can be one bill for up to 4 households.
Right.
So we're wanting to dig a little bit deeper to further identify who that average user is, but we maintain that historically the average user has been shown to be higher than what they actually are because of that unknown factor, 1 bill, 4 households.
Oh, they're being assessed higher than they would normally if it was more granular.
The local government, city council, others believe that the average user cost was actually higher than it really is because they really didn't know what the average user looked like, how much, what that usage is. We were able to get that fine-tuned a little bit better to recognize that the average user is actually paying a very respectable low bill. And that includes the flood control system and the stormwater system, which other communities don't have in their enterprise fund for sewers.
And so the appeal for the increase, which actually stands to reason, increases actually occur on every strata,
Sure.
as everyone knows. This becomes a fixed cost for some people, but the appeal for the increase is, again, we were talking earlier about, do you do something that prepares you for something, or do you do something that reacts to something? And what would you say that this supports, this increase?
It's still a reactionary mode.
Okay.
Which is why, in conjunction with this proposed rate to $8.03, it has $235,000 in the budget to address sewer breaks for FY24. The FY23 budget had $7,500 in it for sewer breaks, right? The reality was the city experienced over $700,000 in sewer breaks. Our 5-year average is $235,000. So the Division of Local Services, who sets the tax rates for cities and towns, has said, because we've historically had deficits associated with the enterprise fund, has said that they expect the city council to vote a balanced budget. So that $235,000 needs to be in there, which supports that rate of $8.03.
Okay. So what happens if you don't meet that?
If we don't meet that, those bills still have to be paid. So that's where the deficit occurs, and the deficit then gets put onto the taxpayer. So it kind of bypasses the normal budgetary process where the taxpayer sees from the beginning what the burden is on them. Instead, this sneaks up from behind because it's a deficit they're being asked to pay for after the fact.
As such, actually, there are increased costs associated with deficit spending in that respect. The deficit investment actually costs you more than if you do the initial investment.
That's correct.
There's some concern about transparency. This seems like you're being fairly transparent to me now, but...
Well, I think it surprised us as the new Board of Public Works and DPW Director and Engineer to note that everybody thinks that their sewer rate is paying for the wastewater collection and treatment system. It's almost like, even though it was kind of known, but it was never fully acknowledged. No, you're paying for the citywide, to bring it down to people understand this, street sweeping. You're paying for citywide catch basin maintenance. You're paying for citywide inspections of outfalls, the full maintenance of your stormwater collection system, which protects everybody's environment.
And is mandated, as
it is
said before.
mandated, and you're also paying for the operation and maintenance of the flood control system, which that's problematic. So a study that we're proposing for FY24 is going to dig down a little bit deeper. What are those costs actually for those individual systems? a conversation with the public and the city council. So how do you want to pay for this? If the public wants it to stay within the enterprise account and have the sewer users, that's great. Do we want to look at a potential stormwater fee? Do we want to bring that back into and acknowledge from the beginning that the taxpayer will fund this? We're going to have that very public conversation so that it's transparent, because right now it's the ratepayers that are subsidizing the citywide stormwater management program and the flood control protection systems.
Is there a point of access for public information on these issues?
There will be.
Okay.
We're waiting for the city council to approve a request through the mayor's office for funding for this study. We'll get the study started as soon as possible, and
be available on the city website?
it definitely will. If there'll be meetings where we'll be inviting the public to participate once we know more about this. So for FY25's budget, we're not going to go through this process of we don't know this, we don't know that. It'll be clear. The path forward would have been as a result of the Board of Public Works, City Council, and the public participating in this discussion.
Thank you, Mary.
I thank you. And thank you. And we hope you learned something today, and we'll have more to talk about.